Sauer, can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you good.
Fantastic. Well, we are recording and we will start the meeting here shortly.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yep. Sorry, I couldn't be there in person today.
Did you be in here or there
Yeah, I'll be here.
in your box?
So I was wondering if I can have this link on my, you have like meeting ID, or see if I can do it online here. I couldn't find meeting ID other than the link, but no, I'll try.
Commissioner, if you use the link that's provided in the agenda packet, we should be able to see and transfer you over too.
Yeah.
Right, Chair, it is 5:30 and you have a quorum.
Okay. I'd like to bring to order the meeting of the City of Lacey's Commission on Equity, November 25th, 2024. I'm looking at the roll. We have Vice Chair Sauer on remote. We have Commissioner Brown here, Commissioner Hart is here, Commissioner Jackson is here, and we have an absentee of the youth rep Powell. Like to have the land acknowledgement read. Commissioner Brown has offered to do that.
Okay. We, the city of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian tribe and Squaxin Island tribe. We acknowledge and remember those tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek as the traditional stewards of this land since time immemorial, and their role today in taking care of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize and have the responsibility to call attention to the histories of a dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allowed our nation, state, and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that the community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854.
Thank you.
Chair, if I could, I just want to point out that Commissioner Hegwood has joined us.
Okay, great. Commissioner Hedgewood is on remote. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda, the previous many minutes, and the consent items.
Noted.
Commissioner Brownhouse, second.
Second, Hart. Commissioner Hart made the motion and Brown seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Motion, any opposed? No. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item of business is public comment. We've received two public comments via email, and we have read that. Is there any comment from the public here today? No. And is there any online?
Chair, nobody registered for public comment.
Nobody registered. Thank you. All right, moving along. We'd like to start with the inspirational item. Commissioner Hart.
Thank you. So what I have today is a little poem kind of inspired by the photo that I passed out. This was based off of or off of a news release that I saw, or a news segment that I saw. regarding the Black races activity and movement when it comes to democracy. It wasn't what I had planned, but I had planned because November, I love Thanksgiving. So my plan was to talk more about Thanksgivings, but I feel that in this moment that this would be a really good time to kind of bring this up. And because when you look up Americana, you really don't see people of color wrapped in Americana. So the poem is entitled, She Rested, Yet the World Moved. The Black woman, radiant, wise, and whole, has carried the weight of a nation's soul. Her hands have built, her tears have healed, her fight has sown what time revealed. But even warriors deserve their peace, a moment to let the battle cease. She's given her all, her love, her fight. Now it's time for others to step into the light. She rests not in defeat, but in grace. Her work a foundation, a sacred place. Democracy grows where her seeds were sown. Now it's up to others to make it their own. For too long she bore the load alone. The pain, the struggle, the seeds unknown. But now the world must open its eyes to rise, to act, to realize. She's shown the way, the path is clear, compassion, justice, the truths held dear. Rest is her right, her divine decree, a call for others to claim destiny. Step forward, see her guiding flame, her legacy calls, do you hear your name? It's time to carry the torch she lit, to uphold the dream, to never quit. For the Black woman rests, her soul alight. She's done her part, she's won her fight. Now let the world rise, the burden to share, to build a future beyond despair. So she lays her crown, but not in defeat. Her strength echoes in every street. Rest, dear queen, your work is done. Now the rest must rise to face the sun.
Very good.
Yeah. If I may, I would like to volunteer for next month's. Oh, into business items, Camacho Middle School, here to talk about Martin Luther King Jr. update and you come, yeah,
Yeah, come on, join us at the table, please.
forward. Mhm.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So my name is Katie Beto Reed, and I am the staff advisor for our student multicultural and equity team. And I reached out to see if we could possibly partner with the commission this year to help us honor Dr. King at our annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Assembly, which is in January. And the response was that we were invited here to make the request in person. And so I asked two of our student leaders on our team to join us. This is Vicky Liu, who's an 8th grader at Camachin, and Andrea Montenegro, who is also an 8th grader at Camachin. And so I'll kind of turn it over to them in just a moment, but we're just here tonight looking for a way to partner with this commission because we know the work that you do is really valuable for our community. And this group has been around for about 4 years, and we're finding new ways to grow student leadership and also kind of make an impact on our local community. I'll invite Andrew to start off. He's going to share our group's equity pledge, which was drafted by students in the 22-23 school year. So they wrote this, and this now resides on a banner in our commons at Camachin.
Well, we are Camacho Middle School, and as a community, we pledge to help create a safe and effective school environment for all. We strive to protect each other from harassment, abuse, and mistreatment. We will create an environment in which it is safe for people to learn, experience themselves, their individuality, and their identity together. We promise to speak up for justice, demand equity, value diversity in our community, and to foster inclusion through daily actions of kindness, compassion, and empathy.
Here, here.
So you can share what your thoughts are on this, Andrew. Go ahead.
Because all I have is why I joined.
Yeah, talk about why you joined.
Okay, the reason why I joined the equity team is because I wanted to make sure people felt safe in our school and not feel harassment, like, because my sister once was bullied and because of racism and all that, and because of her color of skin. I've been in the equity team for about 2 years now. I think I've done pretty well of trying to help people to feel safe in our school, and I'm excited to keep going in this team and my school. We hope you can come into our assembly to help share Dr. King's vision for how people can get along in peace.
I'm Vicky Wu, and I have been a part of this club since like near the end of my sixth grade year, and I'm an eighth grader now. And I joined in the first place because of spreading more knowledge about cultures, because I'm Chinese, and also spreading awareness for the LGBTQIA community, as I have many friends who are part of that community. And last year we had assembly for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, right? And I don't think it really honored or talked about a whole lot about him himself and his legacy, so I was hoping we could focus more on that this year. And thank you very much for listening.
So that's why we're here. We really wanted to invite a community member to come and just share how Dr. King's legacy has informed the work you do as a commission for the city of Lacey, and looking for one or two speakers who might be willing to. We have about 640 students at Camachin who might be willing to take 5 to 7 minutes and speak to the students as part of our assembly. So that's the request. And I don't know the process for how you make official decisions. I'm sure it takes a while, but I'm putting it out there to you.
Oh, I could ask for volunteers, or we could get back later. If anybody like to jump up? But
And I should let you know that the assembly will be Friday, January 17th. School starts at 9:20. We usually get the students all down to the gym by 9:30. So it would be between like 9:15 and 10:15 in the morning.
well, shall we'll talk about it afterwards and we'll get back to you.
That
Yeah,
sounds great.
it's exciting, and we would love to be able to be there with you.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
I would just say that I appreciate your comments about you want to see more emphasis on the life and history of Dr. King and how it's moved away from that. So I really applaud you all as students who want to see it come back to the real meaning of what it's like to have a national holiday other than just a day of service.
I applaud you in starting this at the middle school level because, you know, having them take that compassion and empathy up into high school. So hopefully you guys continue taking this and going forward, paying it forward.
They will. I know they will.
Student initiative is really important. So great.
I also want to comment real quick that I'm very impressed about hearing. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name early, but the one in blue shirt sharing about what you guys, I'm so sorry, didn't catch your name.
Andrew?
Mhm.
Andrew.
Andrew, yes, that's right. That you wanted to do, do what you can at your level, and you are trying to stop the bullying and all that. That's very, very impressive. Great, keep going. Well, applause behind your back. You're very, very good. Thank you.
I think from a city, I'm Shannon Kelly Fong. I'm the Assistant City Manager here at the City of Lacey, and I just really appreciate both of you coming out here today. And I just want to put a plug in that we have a Lacey Youth Council, and so in the future, just something to take a look at. We like to look for leaders across the community, sophomores through seniors. So in a couple of years, the two of you should take a look at the Lacey Youth Council. Thank you again for being here and telling us about your upcoming event, and we look forward to getting back to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business is a city logo and branding guide. I don't know.
And just really quickly, logistically, your presentation, where is it saved? Great. We'll get this presentation up online shortly after the meeting. Yeah, so sorry, we found the presentation here, just trying to upload that and transition into that. Ty is our communications manager, who I think some of you had the opportunity to meet at the last community forum that we held in the All Abilities Community Forum. Ty has been taking on some of our strategic communication initiatives for the city, and these are things that have been identified in our city's communications plan, which I know you all had the opportunity to weigh in and provide feedback. I think it was now 3 years ago, which is just incredible to say that we are coming to the end of year 3 of the Commission on Equity. So Ty has been working on taking that document and operationalizing it, working with the rest of the departments across the city. And one of the things that we've had identified in the communications plan was to really focus on getting a tone and branding for the city, and starting with things like our logo and then creating a branding guide out of that. So that way we had a consistent look and feel to all of our city documents as we transition. I think, one thing I'm sure you all have noticed, probably just driving around the city at times, you'll see various logos in use for the city. And so one of the things that this project plans on doing is finding a unified way to project the city, not only through images, but also taking a look at what we have for content and tone. And so Ty's gonna go into the presentation, provide a little bit of an update on that, and we just want some general feedback from the commission tonight. So Ty, our communications manager.
Thank you, Shannon. Must admit, you took most of my intro, so that's fine enough. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of work with my team on the logo design with the city of Lacey and looking at what we have now, and I'll go into a little bit of the background of how we got into this in the first place. But it all comes back to the branding guide, which I'll wrap up with as well. So before I launch into that though, I want to just mention a little bit about logos. What's in a logo? So a logo is really one of the most important parts of a brand. So here you see the iconic Coca-Cola red and white with the cursive lettering. So no matter where you are in the world, people know that this is a Coke. They know this is Coca-Cola. Brands are really fantastic, especially for somebody who's kind of nerdy about brands like me, because they're an image of a city, they're an image of a company, they're an image of something, and they convey that is that city, that company, that thing, but they also convey other things too. They convey feelings. So when you see the Coca-Cola logo, maybe you might think of refreshment, maybe you might think of tradition, stuff like that. So brands have all kinds of other elements, and the logos follow those things. So the Ford logo here you kind of get the feeling of what you've been catered to with advertising over the years. Ford is often associated with quality, or Ford is associated with American. You know, those are ideas. Nike is associated with sporty or competition. So those are the feelings you get when you see those things. When you see Gucci, you might think quality or luxury. Apple invokes the idea of quality, but also invokes innovation as well. So these are the feelings you get when you see these logos and these brands. These are also two very colorful logos as well. The Lego logo is associated with quality also, and people think of fun at the same time. With Shell, that's an example of a company whose product has absolutely nothing to do with its logo. But every time you see that image, you know what that is. It's, you know, on all of their advertising, it's on all of their facilities, and every time you want to get gas, you know you can recognize a Shell station by the red and the yellow there as you drive down the street. Logos often have hidden meanings too. So in this case, Amazon is known for its smiley face on all of its packages. But the smiling arrow also represents that Amazon carries everything you would ever need from A to Z. That's part of their clever branding. FedEx also has recognizable colors, that weird off blue and the off orange color there. But people also miss that there's an arrow. That's part of the negative space between the E and the X, and that initiates speed and follow through. So there's all these really interesting parts of logos that I've admired through the years. So let's move to the city of Lacey. So goal 3A, as Shannon mentioned, of the 2022 communications plan is to put together a branding guide for the city. And a big part of the branding guide is guidance on the agency's logo. So when we started to put together this guidance for branding, we realized that there were some issues with the logo itself. And we started trying to figure out, well, what is the official logo of the city? We weren't really sure. There are different logos and they all have different colors and they're not quite all the same. And then asking around, nobody's really sure what the definitive logo is. And there are, as Shannon mentioned, different logos throughout our communications. So assuming that this is the official logo, we kind of moved forward with that. But there are several issues with this logo that we've had problems with for many years. And one is that there are different versions of the logo in use and no clear direction on which one is the most current version. So there's no guidance on which logo to use in which situation. When you're putting the logo on certain communications, you don't know which one to use. And from this, some slightly different versions of the logo have emerged. And really that kind of comes out of creating bad copies with colors and other elements that are slightly off. And we also provide our logo to contractors who might not get the best version, and then that is out there being used as well. And so an official logo and brand guide will really alleviate the scenario because it will provide guidance on which logo to use in what situations. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the movement to go away from like photos and backgrounds to words like the city of Lacey
Yes.
versus having some picture on it, some background?
Some type of an
Being more
icon.
contemporary.
Yes. There's a number of companies that have done things like that. Recently, BP is one of those companies that I think of most prominently. We did consider that. And when you develop a logo, you not only can you have a logo like an image itself, but you also can make a word version. And that is one of the selected ones that you can use in the appropriate situation to use that.
I think just to maybe jump in and add a little bit more too, we'll be taking a look as part of the branding guide of just exactly like text and logos too of what to use in certain circumstances, and that'll be built out so that we're being consistent on, you know, if it's just a text that we're using, what it looks like. If it's the logo and text, what it looks like.
Yeah, because many organizations, they have two.
Yeah,
And they use one when it's most appropriate,
yeah.
you know, sometimes letters, sometimes the image, yeah.
I've got that coming up here in a couple of
Oh, I'm
slides.
sorry. Let me be quiet.
Let's see, so the colors and the style of the logo are really reminiscent of a logo that was designed in the 1980s. And while its elements have, the 1980s have kind of a timeless appeal, they're not always the best to present in our current time. So the washed out colors that we have on the logo and also the horizontal lines behind the mountain, that's not really typical of a modern logo. Like I said, that's a very 1980s logo. And really, if you just want to do a simple Google search for 1980s graphics, you'll come up with things that are similar to our current logo. So some other issues, the logo cannot be used when the white part of the logo is transparent. And so when it's displayed on some colored backgrounds, the logo has to have kind of like an awkward box behind it where you can't read the words that are on the bottom of it. And you can see that in the green one here on the second example where it's transparent, but the words are washed out. The lines behind the mountain are an issue too. They also bleed together. Especially when used on television, they don't interlace cleanly. And the same effect can happen on computer screens as well. The lines are very hard to duplicate. And it's led to some issues like the third one there you see on the vest. Those are supposed to be white lines with blue lines, and instead you have blue lines with no lines. So the thickness is off on all of those logos, and it's just very dated. Also, sometimes we have a need for a word logo, like you're saying, or sometimes you need a round logo because of whatever purpose. And the city's logo has always been this kind of like imperfect square. So you have to figure out like how to put literally the square thing into the round hole. And it just doesn't look right and it distorts. So when it comes to logos, the first thing you're going to see is the text. And if you can't read the text, then the next thing you're going to look at is the image. And if the image is also wonky, then it's just not benefiting anybody. Good example of that here. In places where the logo is used, again, the lines behind the mountains vary. And in this one, we've got this promotional clip here, and the mountain is non-existent there, and the lines kind of fade out. It's just very hard to reproduce. And then we have problems with colors too. As you see, we've got 3 different versions of the logo there on the right-hand side, all with different versions of all the colors. And it's this is just from people trying to reproduce the logo, and if something's not working, they change the colors slightly, and then that logo gets used again, and it just kind of spreads from there. Another issue is some versions of the logo simply read Lacey or do not read anything at all. And really, City of should be included in the logo, so there's no question on who we are. I have worn my logo gear that says Lacey on it, and I've had people talk to me and say, "Oh, what does your company do?" And well, I don't work for a company; I work for a city, and so they're not
Hello,
not
Lacey.
familiar.
Right.
Yeah, or yeah, it could be my name. So what we wanted to do was have a design that we can all agree on, and we wanted to tweak the design so it was usable in as many situations as possible. But a couple of things that we did not want to do. We don't want to do a full logo redesign. We just want to update the design to be a little more modern. And I'd love to redesign the logo, but that means really messing with your brand a lot. It takes a lot of effort to do that. It's an onerous process. And it can be long and difficult and takes time, takes money. And so in this case, that's really not what we wanted to put our efforts into. We just want to do a modern update. And we wanted to keep the recognizable elements of the design, so the mountains and the trees and so on that people are familiar with, and kind of respect the sentimental connection that people have had to our logo for so many years. And also we wanted to incorporate City of. So communications staff got together and discussed some issues with the logo and how we could solve them. We had staff come up with some wonderful alternative designs, and we went through several rounds of options of what we liked and what we didn't like. And we also went over options with various other staff around the city to get some more qualitative data. And we landed on a few different things, and I can tell you, even I was surprised, because normally when you do a logo redesign or an update, there's a lot of opinions out there, and it's hard to corroborate all of those things into one or two definitive designs. But in this case, I can tell you that there was a lot of consensus, and for the most part, I mean, that's really good when people can touch on those same things. In this particular case, I found exactly 0 people that were in favor of keeping the lines behind the mountain. I can tell you that. And also the wording, that people wanted the wording not awkwardly placed off to the side. So with that, we have an updated logo, and the new logo solves several of the problems with the previous logo while still keeping an important kind of sentimental connection to the previous logo. The colors have been adjusted to be richer and more vibrant rather than this washed out version that you have here. The lines behind the mountain have been replaced, so we have a single color here now. Also note that the logo is encompassed completely with a border, so the text is within the design itself, and you don't have words floating around on the outside, and they're not going to get lost in anything by being out in the open. Few words, yeah.
So is that a bald eagle or is that a hawk?
That's right here. So
Oh, there we go.
the symbolism of the design, we've got, of course, the water. And that represents Lacey's many lakes and wetlands, and Lacey's also kind of the bottom point of Puget Sound too, geographically. We've got the trees. Lacey's a heavily wooded community, and there's been a Tree City USA community since the early 1990s, so trees are very important here. And besides that, sustainability and healthy tree canopies are kind of part of the work that we do. The mountain, of course, is in the background. And mountains are typically a symbol of strength and pride, especially for those who live in the South Sound here. And the other element is the bird, which is the hawk. And one of Lacey's suburbs is the Hawks Prairies area. And Hawks Prairie is kind of a strong focus of economic development right now for our community. And while the Hawks Prairie is actually named after a person, not a bird, but it's represented by a hawk. And there's also a hawk statue in that area. I'd also add that my kids go to River Ridge High School, which is nearby, which has a mascot that is the hawk. Another thing about the hawk is the hawk's flying in front of the mountain, which also appears on the patch for the City of Lacey Police Department and other places. So connects to the police department too, which is not something we have currently.
Why didn't you guys just use the Lacey Police Department patch?
Well, that's kind of their patch, and they've got some other things with their
Going on.
logo, yeah.
So how will it work if you ever needed to have a round version of it?
So with this version, when we create the branding guide, we will have the main logo, which is this one. But we also create a horizontal logo that just has the words and maybe the symbol on the side. We haven't decided yet, but that'll be appropriate for that. And then we create an alternate version that is a round version that is only used when you have to have a round version. So yeah, we counted for all of these things.
And Kai, I think if you go back 2 slides, you can see a prototype of what you were talking about. One more, there you go in the bottom corner. While it's not finalized necessarily,
These were all
you get an
options.
example.
We were asked several times about the font. The font that's used in the Lacey logos, just like Adobe Garamond, is a very common font. It's not unique, but it's kind of become distinctive and a recognizable symbol of our brand. So people call it the Lacey font. The font in the previous logos has been squished and stretched, so it's hard to recreate. In this one, it's been corrected, so it's spaced out properly. So the plan here is to roll forward with a new logo. And this version will be the official logo of the city and will be kind of the centerpiece of the branding guide that we're creating. And because the branding guide is a policy document, then the guidance on the new logo will be used across all of our city communications as part of policy. And once the brand guide, including the new logo, is finalized, we will use it to update a number of things. So the new logo will go into our press releases and our letterhead, our talking points, our comms plans, and things like that. But it will also be used on TV 77, on our website, and other places. The idea here is that when you have one logo and everybody's using one logo, then all of your communications look the same and they look like they're coming from the same entity, the same.
Will you also have like a color kit with the hex so that when you're going and you're not having to worry about, okay, now we've got the lime green and we've got not the.
That is coming up in 4 slides,
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay.
So one thing that we are not going to do is, we're gonna do our best to find where all the logo is across the entire city system, documents and everything like that. But we also have the logo in a number of other places, like on trucks and other places that, the goal here is not to go and replace the logo everywhere because that would be very costly. And so we're not gonna be out there replacing images on trucks or signage and stuff like that. The plan here is as these things age out and as they're replaced, we'll update them with the new logo. So gradually it will be put everywhere.
I would think for trucks that wouldn't it be fairly easy to get a stick on that?
Maybe, that's a question for Public Works really and what they can afford to do.
Yeah, I can see signs and stuff, but on trucks, seems like you could
Yeah.
do it pretty easily.
A couple things on the trucks too. So I mean, you can see from this picture too, it's not just about replacing the logo, it's about replacing other elements of the line too that may not meet the color standards that are also established by the branding guide that's gonna be coming up. So some of our trucks, will just kind of naturally cycle out, so we're kind of waiting for the period. And there could be an opportunity in the future where maybe we do an emphasis, but we're trying to reduce the fiscal impact of this in, talking about costs, but also resources of time.
One thing I also want to note on is that we don't have any policies or ordinances in place to protect our logo right now or the city seal. And that's very typical of other cities to have those things. So I've been working with legal to craft a document that will be an ordinance that would do that. And the council will be seeing that in the future. And we're also going to re-up our trademark, so we're able to protect the logo there too. So next steps, assuming this will become the official city logo and the centerpiece of the new brand guide, we will be taking that to the council tomorrow. And then from there, we'll be looking at completing our brand guide before the end of the year and then updating all of those other things as I mentioned. Any questions about logo before I talk briefly about branding?
Any plans to get feedback from the tribe, Nisqually tribe? And just a visual, this important visual of this area.
Yeah, we hadn't thought of reaching out to the tribe, but it's certainly something we could look at, yeah.
Be nice to get feedback.
Yeah. Okay. So a little bit about branding guides. Again, I kind of geek out on this a little bit because I like branding guides a little bit, but the decision on the logo is driving our branding guide. So once we get the logo finalized, we can decide upon the colors and decide upon the fonts and everything else that go into our guide. Branding guides are great. Many companies use branding guides, states and state departments use branding guides, cities use branding guides. Really, it just kind of lays out your color palette, kind of fonts you use, graphics, imagery, that kind of thing, and how to properly use all of those elements so your city looks consistent. Big reason why you'd have a branding guide is for that consistency. Employees also then can use that branding guide, so they're not trying to recreate documents and logos themselves, and should be very handy there. Brand guides will, ours specifically will have a section for fonts and typography. That will be also not just for publications, but for the web, how to properly use icons and how to use icons so people can see them, how to choose proper colors for things, what not to do with your different images and things. How to choose photos, how to take good photos. There'll also be a section there on accessibility, and that includes the use of alt text and headers and color usage and things, so anybody can read the material and understand the material. With that is also a style guide. Excuse me. And a style guide includes information on writing. So they're great because they help with telling the culture and the personality of your organization a little bit better. So how to use government terminology the right way, how to plain talk things for any audience, how to properly cite laws and codes, when to use the land acknowledgement, guidance on how to do things like that, that not everybody realizes. And like I said, the next step will be to then transition our letterheads and our newsletters, PowerPoint presentations, all these things in with this branding guide, so it's all the same style and looks like it comes from the same place. So where we are in the process, we are around step 4 or 5, right in there. So we're doing some drafting and getting some feedback from different internal groups, making sure that this guide's going to fit our needs, and we'll roll forward from there. And like I said, I want to make sure this is done before the end of the year. Any questions on that?
So this would also includes restrictions on the use of it and how to use it officially. An example, if someone's doing a flyer or if the city is involved with a group of sponsors for something, that particular logo you use will it be a requirement that they get the official from you to be a part of that, not just, oh, I like this and copy and paste it.
Yes, that's exactly the problem that's been happening for many years. So
Okay.
yeah, people will have the ability to come to us and get the proper logos, and they'll have the guidance on how to create good materials. So we won't see any of the problems that we see with people not being able to read things or adjusting the colors in weird ways or anything like that.
It also gives us the ability, like Ty mentioned too, to say, hey, please stop using our logo because it's not being used correctly or for the purposes that the city would want the logo to be used for.
Yeah,
So the branding's very important. It really is our integrity as an organization.
my former employee, Bureau, had those issues because we changed the logo, took the wording off and only have the symbol, which is all-American company is recognized for over 100 years, State Farm.
Stay far.
So if you see one with the words on it, auto life, you know that's no good. It's old, so you know they didn't follow the proper channels to get the proper and the most current logo. So
Yeah.
it's like that.
Commissioner Hedgewood has a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if for the, you mentioned the accessibility portion that also includes like the colors used. I was wondering if that includes like color blindness palettes and things like that as well.
It does, yes.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. We can go back to that presentation. Probably not.
Well, we can send a follow-up, Ty.
Sure. Yeah, no, I just wanted to
Yeah.
posit Civitas if it wasn't already considered, but I'm assuming it was. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I'll give you a really good example. I've been looking at different Google Maps, and the maps outline the city of Lacey in green with a red outline around them, which is not great for people who are colorblind.
Right.
One example is my son is actually colorblind, and he has trouble deciphering the different shades of the map that he sees. So it'll have information like that in the guide that says, don't use red and green for this purpose.
Nice. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And I'll just add on to that we're here tonight with just kind of the introduction with the purpose that we are gonna be back with the branding guide to go over and get some feedback on that as well. So you'll be able to see, exactly what Ty was talking about of like taking a look at making sure that our logo, our language and our text is accessible as we move forward.
I had that issue too, and I think with the red and green, if you have a different color behind it, shading it, then and this is a family member, of extended family member that has blindness too, and if they have like a opposing color with green, then it's still can't see the green or what have you, but at least they can make out that that's there.
Yeah, yeah, there are examples of that that come in multiple shades, and it says pretty blatantly, do not do this, or this is okay, this looks all right, this does not.
Yeah. Mm.
I have a quick question about the shaping our community together. I mean, that's a part of the brand that we've been using. Is that gonna continue? I have a personal vision of Lacey, where you belong. But you didn't mention that phrase that.
Yeah, that catchphrase is a little bit outdated. It's on some of our older logos, and was used in a lot of specialty situations for events and things like that. We don't really use that anymore, but people still use that because they find it and slap it onto things.
I'll jump in there just a little bit, clarification on that point. So it is understood as our motto right now in our strategic plan. And so that would certainly be something that we would talk and discuss with the council about moving away from to any kind of future statement. But part of what Ty already went over is when you looked at the logo itself and you had that language in there, number one, it's really, really hard to read. And then it's also visually unbalanced. It was kind of sticking off to the side, and then there was no closure to the logo itself. And so it made it really hard to center on documents. And so it's still gonna exist as the motto for now. And that's for further council deliberation. And so we are still, working under the, shaping our community together, and you'll find that in various city documents and policies.
The
Not
important-
in the visual.
Yeah, the important thing about mottos is that they have to be used in the right situation. So logos go onto all kinds of things, but you almost never put a motto with a logo on every single case. So it's really about the situation in which you're using the imagery.
And so like I said, Ty will be back to go over some more of the branding guide a little bit later. We're gonna be bringing this to council for discussion and to make sure that we're setting a good foundation for us to move forward with and get some direction from them. So pending that conversation, it may make some changes from when you see it next. But at the next review, we do wanna take a look again at our accessibility, making sure that we're having language in there and that we're taking into account different types of accessibility elements. And so we will be returning here shortly. So I just want to make sure that you all got some background of kind of where we were going. So when we returned, you had a understanding and foundation for it.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ty?
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is against hate, racism and discriminatory actions, a proclamation review. Shannon?
All right, well, good evening, Chair and Vice Chair and Commissioners. We're here tonight to take a look at a draft proclamation that the city has crafted. And we want some feedback and some edits, if necessary, from you all. And this proclamation was really created because we received a request from the NAACP of Thurston County. This specifically came from Larry Jefferson. And Larry basically was requesting that all of the jurisdictions here in Thurston County come together and create a proclamation or a resolution really denouncing hate crimes and other types of discriminatory actions. And so we've posted Larry's letter now online too, so you can access that and you can read it. But I just want to read here the bold, what they're looking for is a public proclamation or resolution that includes a clear condemnation of hate, racism, and violence in all of its forms, and a reaffirmation of your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so the city took a run at crafting something like this, and we want to make sure that we aren't missing anything, and if there's any additions that you all are interested in seeing. And so we prepared a draft, and it was included in your packets for tonight. And you can see it starts off here with the city of Lacey recognizes and values the diversity of its community members and is committed to fostering a safe and welcoming and inclusive community for all, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, disability, income, educational attainment, and English proficiency. It goes on then to say hate and racism and other discriminatory and oppressive actions harm not only the targeted individuals, but also the social fabric of our communities, undermining trust and cooperation among neighbors. And talks about how civil rights are fundamental to the foundation of our democratic society, ensuring that all community members feel safe, welcome, and valued, and that discrimination, hate, and acts of violence undermine these values. Talks about what's going on around the country, also here locally, that there have been recent actions that have occurred. Events at the national, state, and local level highlight the need for communities to take a firm stand against hate and violation of civil rights, and to reaffirm our shared commitment to justice, equity, and human rights. And talks about how the city of Lacey is committed to taking action to eliminate systemic barriers to equity and to promoting policies and programs that build understanding, reduce prejudice, and celebrate the contribution of all community members, as demonstrated in the recent adoption of our first ever diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging strategic plan. And then it also says that the city reaffirms its dedication to act with purpose in advancing equity, justice, and accountability by making meaningful progress on the goals, strategies, and action plans identified in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging strategic plan, including improving community engagement and outreach, creating more equitable policies and procedures, and continuing to protect against hate crimes, discrimination, and other forms of violence and oppression. And then the draft calls on the city being united and against hate, racism, and discriminatory actions, and urges all community members, businesses, and organizations to stand together in rejecting hate, promoting kindness and understanding, and working towards a community where everyone feels safe and is treated with dignity and respect. And so, commissioners, I just want to get some feedback if there's any additions that you all would like to see as part of this proclamation.
This is really strong. And I'm part of the NAACP that sent the letter to the jurisdictions. There's just one word missing, intimidation. We talk about hate crimes, discrimination, and other forms of violence and oppression. I'm looking through here trying to see if I see intimidation in any of the whereases.
That's a good word, but there's different types of intimidation too, because to some folks, just our sheer skin color can be intimidating to them.
What was that I didn't?
Skin color could be intimidating to some folks. It happens. So how do you defines intimidation to somebody?
Well, the same as some of the other words used here, mean different things to different people.
With
And
an
need
intent,
definition.
with an intent to
Intent to,
scare.
yeah.
Intimidation with an intent.
It's just a word I don't see here. These are very good, strong words, but intimidation plays a part here. I'll give you an example. It's not a definition, but just 2 weeks ago, just coming from my home, driving to the Lacey Post Office. As I get to the first roundabout, there's this gun shop and a man standing out there on the sidewalk, waving one huge flag saying Trump Company, Trump Country, and the other raving AR-15 sold here, which was very intimidating to me. Now, I don't know what definition you could use for it, but I felt threatened and intimidation. Trump Country, AR-15 sold here. And, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, heavy traffic, the whole thing That's intimidating. That's intimidating. And sure, exercising his free speech, but where does that infringe upon my right to feel safe and secure in my community, to just be able to drive down the street and not feel intimidated by that act? So intimidation is just a word I don't see here. And, you know, someone could pick this whole thing apart and want a specific definition. But you know it when you see it. You know it when you feel it. You know it when you're the object of it.
Yeah.
And this is about hate, racism,
Hate and
discrimination.
yes, AR-15 sold here. You know, weapons of mass destruction. That was very, and some people were driving, you know, giving the finger, and other people tooting the horn, but very intimidating. But this is, to comment on this is strong, this sends a message. And I know the other jurisdictions are responding equally. And it does point back to our diversity, DEIB whole plan. But that's just one aspect of it, as I'm thinking of that particular personal encounter. That too, you know, lead people to not feel safe and secure in their community when that kind of intimidating act is being perpetrated. I don't know how many other times the guy had been out there, or if it was associated with the owner of the shop, but for that particular day, at that particular time, it caught my attention. Just a block from where I live, my community.
So commissioners, if I wanted to add that, recommendation could be to have it here in the final whereas, where it says to protect against hate crimes, discrimination, and other forms of violence, intimidation, and oppression.
That would be a good spot for it, whether it's in that sequence of words or not, but yes. Hate crimes, discrimination, intimidation, and other forms of violence and oppression. Maybe. After discrimination. After discrimination.
Sorry, the keyboard is a little slow.
My suggestion would also be like maybe intimidation tactics, perhaps, or racial intimidation specifically.
I'll accept racial, as John has recommended, racial intimidation. But it doesn't always have to be just
Yeah,
racial.
it could be a bunch
This
of things.
intimidation, I think, kind of captures the.
So my question has to do with the proclamation itself. Who would receive this proclamation? Is it the NAACP? And so they receive 4 or 5 proclamations from the cities. What's their plan to use it so it has an impact in the community? How is it communicated? So it's just not on paper. They have to have a plan.
There's no plan at this point. It was just a feeling of a need for the communities to speak out, given the clamor that's overtaking this country right now.
Okay, so the goal initially is to have each of the jurisdictions to have a proclamation where they are specifically saying these things and for record, that they're on record with these proclamations.
In the city council meeting.
And I think a couple of things, if I could, Commissioner. So number one, yes, we have invited Larry to come with the NAACP to accept the proclamation, and we're hoping to get confirmation of that here shortly. I think the other thing is, you know, at this group, we've talked about how we have worked for years on the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging strategic plan, and just recognizing that, you know, other jurisdictions are still on their path to creating those types of plans. And this is a very, powerful statement that you can make in a proclamation while you continue on those journeys.
We really don't know where it might lead or where it might go, Cliff, but we just thought it would be a beginning point for the kind of conversations this community must begin to have.
I think that's a really great point of something we're trying to do with the forthcoming equity summit as well, of like, how do we get all of the jurisdictions together? How do we move beyond to just the jurisdictions to talking about businesses, nonprofits, community members, youth, et cetera, to get us all together to find ways that we can take collective actions and steps for equity and inclusion here in Thurston County. And this is, I think, a great step forward to continue to build off the momentum and effort. But I think it is a great question, Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, well, it shows leadership on Lacey's part, to do it, and we have, I was had a lot of meat in it because what we've been involved in, what we've done. So, for Lacey, I think just getting out in front of it, and really making this strong statement, then that would give the other jurisdictions incentive to not only do a proclamation, but to move forward with their equity and inclusion in other commissions and things that they're creating. So, we're all on board as a county, which is their goal here. So, yeah.
I think any opportunity we have to make a strong stand, that we should do it, and that we'll have more opportunities, but we could keep saying, oh, we're serious about this.
Looks like Commissioner Hegwood has a question.
Commissioner Hedgewood, do you still have a question, or your hand is up?
Yep, it was a different recommendation also for moving past the intimidation piece. Is that okay? I would also, along with Commissioner Jackson, like to see strong. I love the wording here. There's a lot of strong words, and there's an addition of one other that I would like to see, specifically a name. I think that I'm reading this. It's really great. Shannon, if you wouldn't mind, could you scroll up just ever so slightly? Yep. So here where it says like, whereas recent events at the national, state, and local levels, I would suggest that we insert something to the effect of, recent events, comma, such as the murder of George Floyd, or the national outrage at the murder of George Floyd, etc. Something to that effect. I think that naming exactly why we're here, what we're doing, saying his name is also really important, along with everything else we're saying here. And to make sure that we're not just, saying, I guess, lofty words, right? We're naming what is happening at the national level, if that makes sense.
I think we would have a long list of names if we did do that. Here, I see your point.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we name all of them, but I'd also think that we're all in fairly unanimous agreement that the murder of George Floyd was the precedence, obviously, for us being formed, as well as probably the largest scale, protest that has been seen in at least a generation across our country and the world, really. So I think, acknowledging that, again, saying his name, that feels like what we should be doing here to me.
Well, we weren't including a name per se, because George Floyd was an example of a tradition of racism and hatred in this country.
100%.
That situation happened to have been caught on camera.
Yep.
And that was the only difference it made. But thousands of cases before George Floyd that the public never heard of.
Yep.
And so to name one name and leave any out would be a disservice to others. I hear what you're trying to say, but I think that would take the conversation in another whole different direction and minimize the importance of the message we're trying to make here, that the city would be making. And make some reference to a history, of racial violence or something along those lines.
Yeah, I would support that also. In lieu of a specific name, I would 100% agree with you on that.
This is a long history of racial violence.
Sure. So something perhaps, the murdering of unarmed Black Americans or something to that effect instead of a specific name. Is that what you're suggesting, Commissioner?
A history of violence against Blacks.
Okay.
Because that's where the history has been. We want to go there. And George Floyd was the epitome of that. Whereas the history of violence against Black Americans or whatever, recent events at the national, then it would infer.
Yeah. Because you're not wrong. I mean, that's, you have George Floyd at the national level and at the world stage, really, but then you have Manny Ellis here in Tacoma. So, and those are just two of, like Chair Clay said, it, an unfortunately long and tragically long list of names.
Under the third, whereas it states, civil rights are fundamental to the foundation of our democratic society, ensuring that all community members feel safe, welcome, and valued, and that discrimination, hate, and acts of violence undermine these values. So there's a mention of acts of violence.
I do like the insertion of the history of violence against Black Americans.
I do as well.
I think maybe because you kind of want to encompass a bunch of people. We also have the Native Americans who also went through some of the same types of issues. You've got people in the LGBTQ that were, have lost their lives as well. So,
and other minorities, Asians.
yes,
and
exactly,
Hispanics.
exactly. So,
So commissioners, from your Commission on Equity message in the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Belonging Strategic Plan, you said, to go back to Commissioner Hegwood's point of the 2020 murder of George Floyd sparked a global movement against systemic racism. And I think the next sentence is perhaps what we can help put in here is that it is part of a 400+ year long history of violence and oppression against Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. And then we could also add an LGBTQIA communities as well into that statement to get at, I think, everybody's point here, if that's okay with the commission.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Okay,
That
so
would capture it all.
I'll put a placeholder in there right now, and then I will type that all out here at the end of the meeting.
It's a bit of a mouthful, not a very necessary mouthful, but definitely a bit of a mouthful for right now.
also make sure you put plus at the end of the LGBTQIA+, because then you're gonna encompass trans people, which are now being targeted.
I think, yeah, it's a good point, and I think it doesn't capture, certainly the full spectrum, and you have the T, right, and LGBT, but there's a whole other spectrum that's not captured in there, and so we certainly want to make sure that we have the QIA+.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, well,
So as long as it doesn't get so far out there that the essence of why the proclamation is being asked for isn't lost. And that's one of the things that happens when Blacks are being put forward as the historically, in addition to Native Americans, and then when the others, then it seems to minimize the historical impact that it's had on slavery and Black Americans. These other groups weren't constitutionally enslaved for 400 years. And that's the distinct difference between other groups of people who have also been mistreated, but they haven't been enslaved, legally enslaved. And that's the main difference there. And that's what leads to the racial violence against Blacks and the hatred. And while those other statements are true in this bigger context, they haven't had the historical mistreatment. And it doesn't take away from the wrongness of mistreatment of anybody.
Sure.
But we're talking about embedded in law, embedded in the Constitution, enslavement by the government. You know, that's a whole different ball of wax than the alphabets that come behind that. And no disrespect to the other mistreated groups, believe me.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why the statement that Shannon suggested is so eloquent, right? Because it leads with the racial injustice to Black Americans and still recognizing, you know, the historical injustice to other communities, minority communities, communities of colors, etc. But leading with that because it is important to recognize the distinction and lead with that distinction of why this has happened and still happening, right? We're still dealing with these institutions of power, etc. And the pervasive, of course, of that legacy. But I digress.
Does that help with your language, Shannon?
I think I've gotten some fantastic feedback and direction from you all, and I really appreciate it. I think it's just going to enhance this proclamation, and I will let you know when it's scheduled for council, so you all can watch or attend if you'd like to. So thank you.
That was a good discussion, you guys. Chills.
Okay, moving on, 2025 work plan review.
All right, commissioners, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it is 2025, right around the corner. We are T minus, I think, 5 weeks at this point in time. And so it is time to start looking towards and planning for 2025. One thing that I do want to highlight now, and I'll also highlight it a little bit later in my director's report, is that we have the joint meeting scheduled for the Lacey City Council, and it's scheduled for January 28th, 2025. Still feels funny to say that. And so this commission will be joined by a couple of other commissions. So we've got the Parks, Culture and Recreation Commission, and then also the Historic Commission. And then maybe the Planning Commission as well, like we did last year, where we have the joint meeting to go over all of the work plans for the various advisory boards for the city. So if you all want to mark that on your calendar, that is January 28th, 2025. And the big part of what we'll be going over is making sure that what's in the work plan matches what the council would like this advisory board to take a look at in the course of the year. So we've been through this a couple of times, but just for background, what you'll find in the document, which was included in your packet, is some background on the Commission on Equity, our current commissioners, including our new Lacey Youth Council representative, our staff support when we meet, and then when the individuals in the community can get more information on our website. It also provides a overview, and I thought including 2021 to 2024 was a lot, so I'm doing it kind of a rolling at this point. So you won't see the first year included of 2021, but you can see everything that the commission has been working on from 2022 all the way to 2024. So you can see here in the blue, this is all of the 2022. Turning to the gold color, you can see here, this is all of 2023. And then finally here in 2024, all of the items that the Commission on Equity has reviewed and considered. Looking back, it is a very full schedule. You all have done a lot of work, and I think it goes back to the comment that was made earlier about how sometimes the meetings can end up a little robust, a little long. But they're always good conversations, like Commissioner Hart just pointed out. So what we did this year and what we did the same as last year was we also just kind of did a report out on where we are, because I know accountability is a big part of our efforts here, you know, as identified in the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Strategic Plan. And so what you can see here in Table C are all of the items that are completed since we started them, and then also the ones that remain in progress. And for everyone that we've remained in progress, we have moved over to 2025 so we can continue to work on them. And I'll use the example of our community liaison program. We haven't forgotten about that. We will be coming back to this board here shortly to provide some information and an update on it. So you can see the couple items that we haven't started as well. So for example, create a recommendation on advisory board recruitment process. We're going to be picking that up here in 2025 as well. And then we are also going to be taking a look at surveys here pretty shortly. So on The 2025 work plan, it provides the items that we're gonna be continuing. So the advisory board recruitment process, the equity tools, equity maps, which I have an update a little bit later on today about, the community liaison program, the community survey, continuing to be involved in the comprehensive plan, being involved in the planning for the DEIB summit, and continuing forums and other engagement events. Those are the continued. And then some of the new items are going to be to review and recommend the report card for the Lacey City Council. So as you all know, in our strategic plan, we identified that every year we were going to be giving a report to the council. And so we certainly want to go over that first with you all and then help us determine what kind of status is moving with all of the information that we have. We'll be taking a look at a language access plan here shortly. And then also taking a kind of a broad overview of an employee survey, potentially cross-departmental equity team reviews, city contracting reviews. I know some questions have come up with that, and then other items as they come up. So everything that has a star here, these are all things that are identified in the diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging strategic plan. So, you know, when we say we want to show meaningful progress, I wanted to highlight again how we're not just letting this sit on a shelf, but we are continuing to work on it and to accomplish the goals and the strategies and the action plans that are identified in that plan.
So how easy is it to pull data from the various departments? Is that internally?
For the report card specifically, it's a process, yeah. Some things are a little bit easier than others. You know, I'll use the example of we can pull the data pretty quickly for some of the demographics on, you know, January 2nd, I'll make the request to make sure that we pull that data, and that's pretty, you know, easy of a data pull to go through. But it's
Demographics of a staff. Or
yeah,
something.
just to pull it, right? Just to get it,
Yeah.
but there
Plus,
are.
I know like the police chief, his report has all that information.
Yep.
He does a really good job. So is that consistent and we'll be able to get real good data like? That's the question.
Yeah, and so we'll be able to compare again from last year to this year, but also I know Chief was just here last meeting and he gave the updated numbers, so we'll have those numbers to be able to put in the next report card, so you can see kind of the comparison year by year. Other data, it's a little bit more difficult because it's things that maybe departments have been working on over the year. And so it's like a narrative and they have to write it. So it is a process. And so I would say anticipate having a draft for review and consideration, probably sometime, maybe February, but more likely March for us to be able to go over holistically looking at 2024. Yeah.
Did you happen to give us a time for that January 28th meeting?
The meeting will start at 6 p.m. And I can send you the updated agenda when we get a little bit closer, when everything's confirmed, but I know we will be on there on that day. Yep. So just like in previous years, what we've done is we've kind of tried to map it out by quarter and you know, to talk about the various elements and where we see them in each of the quarters. So you can see picking up the community liaison program, finalizing the equity map, reviewing the employee survey, and then continuing to review city policy documents. And I'll use the example of the branding guide. We'll be coming back to this group for further review, likely here in Q1. And then also, like you just highlighted, Commissioner Brown, having the report on the strategic plan coming back to this group as well. You can see the joint meeting with the city council, talking about community surveys, planning with the Fred U. Harris Lodge for the Juneteenth celebration. And I believe, is this actually 43, right?
This will be 44 coming up.
Okay, so we're gonna have to update that one, 44. And that is it. The Lacey Cultural Celebration and then the regional summit. For Q2, we've got a focus group. We have a meeting with the Lacey Youth Council. We have the joint meetings with our DEIB representatives, which we have been doing with local institutions every year. So inviting North Thurston Public Schools and Pope John Paul II and any other group, maybe SPSCC again to get some updates. Researching advisory board processes, reviewing and researching equity tools, starting that recruitment process update, the comprehensive plan, and then other cities as they come up, and then to participate in the 44th Juneteenth celebration with the Fred U. Harris Lodge, and then hosting the 2025 DEIB Regional Summit with partners.
Could you go back up there to the hold a focus group?
Yep, absolutely.
Is that a focus group or what focus group are we talking
Yeah,
about?
do we have a theme?
So I think this would be going back to our community forums, and we had a couple of them identified. And so we are working with some partners and hoping to work towards scheduling them out here pretty soon.
So in the second quarter, we'll be holding those focus groups again.
Yeah, and I think anticipate hosting one or two of them with the idea of 3 in the entire year.
Okay.
Like we've done
So
previously.
that's why I hold a focus group.
Yep,
Okay.
singular, yep.
Okay.
Yep,
All right.
yep. And then you can see we get a little less here as we move on because we know through time that things take longer than we had planned for, so just giving us a little extra space. You can see. We did, absolutely. Holding another focus group, reviewing a language access plan, and that could come sooner depending on kind of the flow, and then talking about cross-departmental equity teams as we continue, talking about surveys. And moving on to quarter 4, holding another focus group, and then also recruiting for Commission on Equity members if needed. Just as a reminder, we have 4 other Commission on Equity positions that their term will come up, and you can certainly have another term, but we wanted to make sure that we had the time in there if we needed to do recruitment, and talking about contracting, and then reviewing other policy documents, and then working on the 2026 Commission on Equity work plan at the end of quarter 4. So that's just the draft of what we have right now. I've got a couple of edits from what you all have already told me. But the idea would be that we would bring this back for your consideration at the next meeting for approval to bring to the Commission on Equity, or excuse me, to the Lacey City Council on January 28th.
I always like to meet with the Lacey youth as soon as we can because you turn around and they're gone. So you have it in the second quarter. Maybe we could, any chance we could put it into the first quarter?
I think we could certainly work that into the first quarter. And that's something obviously we'll have to check our schedules, but I think it's a possibility. We can certainly have that come in a little bit earlier. So I'll just put this in as a placeholder for right here, right now. But not do that.
And do we have anywhere in our plan for 25 to meet with these school district people?
Yeah, I saw
Is
that.
it
Yes,
here?
education, yeah.
Did I miss it?
I'm sorry, the
Yes.
keyboard is not working here, but I've identified joints. I'll come back to that. Yeah, so that was up in quarter 2.
Okay.
We do have the joint informational meeting with representatives from local education institutions.
Okay, I missed it. Okay, thank you.
Well, nope, okay, there we go again. It's working now.
Well, this is with DEIB representatives from local education institutions. But it wouldn't be with any administrators or school board members or anything.
I think we can certainly expand our invitation to include those groups, but it is at the discretion of the school board for who,
Right.
or the administration of who they would recommend coming to the Commission on Equity.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to, for the commission to explore that a little more. Because that's the Dr. Sandifer level again versus program directors and assistant administrators and school board members that make the policies, but we're talking about equity and we've not done that, so, okay. As much as possible.
Well, thank you, commissioners. I'll be back the next meeting for approval. Make some of these edits and updates, and we'll talk again on it.
see, where are we? Okay, commissioners' reports. Commissioner Hedgewood, would you like to let us know about the parks improvement funding work?
Sure thing. I'm not sure how updated everyone else is. I know I had a chance to speak with Chair Clay and Shannon about our progress. Anyhow, we're effectively a meeting away, hopefully, from making a recommendation to the city council on what a parks plan looks like. And that is going to be in effect for the next 6 years, calendar years. This last meeting that we had, which was last Monday, was us making priorities as a group consensus for different projects that the Parks Department has kind of on the books, or aspirations, as it were, or even existing facilities that are in need of improvements, or like accessibility renovations, such as like warped tracks, or sidewalks that aren't level, or even just like playground areas that have kind of like that rubber turf, which is, I guess, great for kids that might fall on it, but not so great for folks that might have accessibility needs that aren't able to have like a wheeled device into that area to help them on the playground equipment. And so they're changing all of those to kind of a more rubberized mat that's kind of like a track. And so like those are all kind of just examples from an equity standpoint on projects that were catching my eye. We of course had several discussions. I think that the group's recommendations as it stands now, it's not written in stone quite yet, of course, but I think it's a good list. We have some good priorities in there. It's not the list that I perhaps would have chosen, but there's good reasons that all of them are in the order that they are in. And yeah, I guess that's where we are at present. We're probably another meeting away from making a recommendation, and potentially another one. That meeting is on the 7th, I believe, of December. And then if we require another, it'll be on the 16th of December. And then that's when we'll make the recommendation to city council by the end of the year. So does anybody have any questions on that for me that I might be able to help answer, or no? We have also, for funding sources, we believe that we will be recommending a creation of a Metro Parks Board district, which administrative explanatory comma, it's a separate body than the city of Lacey or the Parks Department that has its own funding. It's able to issue debt, which is useful for getting projects done and of course borrowing money to make them happen. It also would require a vote from the general public to make it happen. There was a previous effort, I believe, in 2018 that failed by a margin of 54% or something like that. It was relatively close. And considering there wasn't much marketing on, the merits and non-merits for it. But realistically, if, we have the conclusion that myself, I should say, and the other Parks Work Group funding members came to is that if we have this list of projects that we want to accomplish, and that the public really is demanding of us service-wise, we have to pay for it. And the city by itself as a part of our general budget and making the reservations that Shannon's probably familiar with, our reservation budgetary items aren't consistent or reliable for that type of funding, unfortunately, especially for new capital projects and just like unforeseen maintenance, like a tree falling, for example. That might just go over a path or damage an asphalt. In one park, we have trees that are in, I think, the next 10 years going to be too large for the place that they're in. And so it's either we have to cut down the trees or we have to take up the asphalt and kind of surround it with better whatever to make it accommodate for its future growth, so that way it can remain there and, of course, be enjoyed by the public in that facility. Anyhow, so yeah, we believe that that's probably where we're going to be also making a recommendation to the city council on that creation piece, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, thanks for representing us on that team.
Of course.
I had one item under commissioner reports. I just kind of along the same lines as the anti-hate and racism proclamation. I would like the city, well, I just kind of want to open it up about sanctuary cities for the protection of immigrants and also the LGBTQ, especially trans community. Washington State is a sanctuary state for immigrants, meaning that the police won't hold somebody for ICE or ask for documents when they're stopped necessarily. And just wondering if that those labeling or determining that Lacey a sanctuary city might be another way of making that strong stand. Recently, there's been more cities that have stated that they were a sanctuary city for LGBTQ. The immigrant sanctuary city movement has been around for quite a while. So I just wanted to kind of open it up if anybody had thoughts about that. The city of Olympia has stated their sanctuary city. Just another way, if anybody has thoughts about that.
I'm just wondering if it's in the WAC or the RCW already for the state that encompasses.
For the state,
all.
it
I'm
is.
just wondering if we declared it a sanctuary state, I would think it would be in the WAC or RCW or somewhere saying that.
I can provide a little bit more background on that. So back in 2017, Governor Inslee issued an executive order which he directed state agencies to continue to provide assistance regardless of citizenship or legal status. And also directs state agencies to not request an individual's immigration status for the purpose of identifying if a person is complying with federal immigration laws specifically. And then later on, to your point, I think there was the Keep Washington Act enacted in 2019. And so we can get some more information on what was included within that act, but that would be something that's codified in the RCWs.
And that would mean there would be no need for cities to do it individually if it's already covered
Right,
and it's automatic.
in a way, well, there are two issues as I understand it. The executive order was around immigration, treating immigrants. And then there's kind of a new threat of, especially to trans people and LGBTQ. So some cities are declaring sanctuaries for that community. And it would, as far as the immigrants, it would be just another statement of, yes, we're there. Yes, we agree with that. Yes, we're working in that manner.
But what does it mean to be a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state? I hear that bounced around, but I really don't know what it means.
It's
What protections does it afford anyone, or what, what comes of it when we say sanctuary city or?
I think it's a good question, and it's a pretty nuanced conversation. And so I think the term itself is contested as to what exactly it means. I think, today, like the chair mentioned, a lot of times when you think about a sanctuary label, it's referring directly to in response to immigration, although historically it has been in response to a lot of other things going
Right.
on. I know you mentioned kind of in the 1980s and just having immigration from Central America. And then also in response to like the Vietnam War, there were sanctuary cities like Berkeley that were established. And then more recently, closer to after 9/11, having sanctuary cities to protect Muslim and Muslim Americans. And so the term has, I think, multiple meanings. So there isn't one just definition of what a sanctuary city. I think most frequently when you talk about a sanctuary city in today's context, it means when government entity decides to limit or refuses to cooperate with the federal immigration agencies, including, sharing information, or like the chair mentioned, detaining individuals for certain periods of time. And that's kind of maybe the most recent, but I think even in the last couple of years and maybe even months and weeks, you've seen an expansion of that to include communities like LGBTQIA plus communities as well. And so to Commissioner's Chair's point, recently, if we look at the state of Washington, we had the executive order. We also had the Keep Washington Working Ahead Act in 2019. Locally, we have had the city of Olympia, like you mentioned, declare itself a sanctuary city for immigration. It's also declared itself a sanctuary city for reproduction rights. So it can mean multiple things. And so it's a very complex, I guess, nuanced question of what does it mean?
Yeah, what does it mean? Yeah. Even in the case of, say, immigration, if I'm an illegal immigrant and I flee to Lacey because you labeled yourself a sanctuary city, I'm okay over here, but in nowhere else can I be illegal. I mean, it's that kind of complexity. That's why I asked, what is a sanctuary city and what does it do for the targeted people we're trying to afford protection for? What does it really do? What kind of bind does that put cities and states and counties in when they label themselves as such?
And that, if I bring this up and if we bring it any further, it would definitely have to be looked at and the lawyers looked at and get that definition clearer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I saw, and I'm looking right here, that just recently too, Seattle's become the first US city to ban caste discrimination as well.
To ban what?
Caste discrimination.
It's so nebulous. I mean, what does it mean to be labeled a sanctuary anything?
I
Yeah,
think what triggered it was that at that time, the Department of Licensing was asking people who were applying for the licenses, their immigration status. And then they reported it to ICE. And then they went and grabbed the people and deported it. So that was totally legal. So because of that, the government issued that sanctuary city WAC. And what they're doing is, for example, if you are an illegal immigrant, but you're working here and you are paying your dues with LNI, for example. And so LNI won't be reporting you with the federal authorities if you're legal or illegal. Because people were not approaching agencies because they were afraid that they were going to be deported or they were going to be reported to the federal authorities because they were not legal. So it was trying to protect people who are still working and paying dues in certain agencies. So that's really what triggered it. It's like if you go to LNI or if you go to licensing, if you go to for an employment to ESD, they're not gonna ask you if you are here legally or not. So it was a way of protecting workers who are here illegally.
and there's a lot as centers around the police. So if somebody reports a crime, the police are not gonna ask for your documentation. They're gonna take care of you and figure out,
So you still have the rights whether you are legally.
Or if ICE came and arrested people and came over here and said, could you hold them for a while before, hold them in your jail? Lacey is gonna say, no, we're not gonna.
Or when somebody goes to the hospital, because in other states, for example, the hospitals would call ICE and will tell them, we have these people here who are here illegally, so ICE would go and get them and deport them.
So for
That's
that
not gonna
community,
happen
the
here.
Mandatory
sanctuary
reporters.
really means something.
So it looks like Commissioner Sauer has their hand raised.
Commissioner.
Yeah, some of the questions that I had is kind of being answered. I was just wondering about the relationship for federal and state level, because obviously we can't override state law. So I guess maybe you're not reporting, we're providing services and stuff at the state level, but as far as so anyway, I guess I'm just like thinking out loud. Was just curious.
So that's a really good question, and I think, that's why, Chair Clay brought up, it's very complex and there would have to be a lot of research performed on this topic. I do also want to highlight that, a lot of cities have used the term sanctuary cities. There's also cities that have used terms like inclusive city or human rights city as well. And so what I would like to recommend is that we can come back with a little bit more information and research at a further date for kind of furthering this discussion, so we all have similar information in front of us at the same time. That's all right with the
Yep.
commission.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just think it's a much bigger issue than just the surface of sanctuary city.
Yeah.
I would just like to say also that if we were designating ourselves as this, it would signal to those looking for a safe place where, like Chair Brown mentioned, or Commissioner Brown mentioned that, if it's already at the state level, then it's automatic at the city level, but that may not necessarily be the case where some cities don't enforce, right, these specific things at the state level. And so kind of doubling down, right, on our values as a community and who we're here to support, which includes everybody, right? And so mentioning that isn't necessarily a hollow gesture, even if there's other legal ramifications, of course, that we need to discuss later and everything else.
Mm.
Yeah, all right. On to the director's report. Take it away, Shannon.
Alrighty, commissioners, I just have a couple of really quick updates for you tonight. I think, number one, I just wanted to highlight that we are proposing that the council move forward with the reappointments to the Commission on Equity for our commissioners, Jackson, Commissioner Hart, and Clay for another term at the December 10th meeting. And so you are more than welcome to attend. It happens during the mayor's report to the council, where he'll make the recommendation for continuing on with another term here at the Commission on Equity. So if you want to attend, you can. By all means, it's you don't have to. I can certainly let you know what the outcome of it is.
You said December 10th?
That is correct. Yep, December 10th. And so that'll be a Tuesday. The meeting will start at 6 p.m. and we typically get to the mayor's report a little bit later than that. So I don't have an exact time for you. Connected to that, I will say that tonight is going to be the last night you can submit an application for the vacant position on the Commission on Equity for the first round of review. And so that doesn't mean that there won't be opportunities later, but if you know of anybody, I would strongly urge and recommend if they could turn in their application this evening, that would be great.
This evening, yeah.
Yeah, the process would be that we're gonna take a look at all the applications we receive tomorrow and then make a recommendation to the mayor on interviews. And depending on how that goes, we could extend the timeline or we could move forward with the process. So I do recommend, again, getting anyone, application in as soon as possible if you have any recommendations or friends or acquaintances who may be interested.
Will the commission have any role in the selection?
That's something up for the mayor's discretion. Typically, the mayor either does the interviews or invites the mayor and the chair to participate in the interviews.
Okay.
Yep, so more to come on what the process is. Tomorrow's just the first round of reviews.
Are there applicants to
We,
be considered at this point?
yes,
Okay.
Yep.
A lot, one or two?
we would like more. How about that?
Okay.
And that doesn't say anything about the applicants, but I think,
Without saying
just-
anything about them, just you have some from which to choose if you don't get any more at this point.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the application is still open, and so we
Gotcha.
are still accepting applications.
Gotcha.
But again, we're gonna continue to review the applications tomorrow.
Gotcha, okay.
So I want to just take a moment to thank and appreciate everyone who's renewing, because I think that it's great to continue the great work and not lose the momentum, and that institutional knowledge and that the plans that we have, we be able to carry over. I just feel very confident with everybody going forward. That's happening. So thank you. I know Ann, Chair wasn't so sure, but I guess she made her mind. So that is so great. Great job. Thank you.
I wasn't so sure either, but
We
looking at
talked
this
ourselves into it.
2025 plan of work.
Well, I appreciate you all being here and all of the work we're gonna do in 2025 and beyond, so. The next item I have is just to give you a real quick update on the Black Home Initiative, because we had the presentation at the last Commission on Equity meeting. And so we are going to be briefing the council here in January on the Black Home Initiative. And so I hope to have a better update for you after that, but I just wanted to let you know that we do have it tentatively scheduled. And once the date is confirmed, I'll send it out to you all so you could watch or attend if you wanted to, and then provide an update. The next item is the joint meeting with the Lacey City Council, which is on January 28th, which I already talked about earlier, but just to make a note on the calendars that January 28th is a Tuesday and it will be at 6 p.m. And then the last update, although I actually have two more to add to the list here, but they're all brief, I promise, is just a real quick update on the equity map. I know this is one of the items that this group has worked really hard on. And so we are in the process of finalizing the contract to work with a consultant to put together the equity map. It's the same consultant that did the city of Tacoma's as well as the city of Lakewoods and Pierce counties. And so we're hoping here in the next couple of weeks that we will start making some meaningful progress on having that tool available for our city departments as well as our community in the future.
Question.
Yeah.
When might the council consider the proclamation we talked about earlier tonight?
We are hoping to get it on the schedule as soon as possible. And so if we can get these edits in tomorrow, and a representative from the NAACP, we're hoping December 3rd.
Okay.
But I will send you all an update if we get a change in time on that.
Okay.
And then the last couple of updates is just to let you know that we are continuing to work with our regional partners on the Equity Summit. And so we're hoping here over the next couple of weeks that we'll have kind of a framework that we can bring back and just introduce you all to, get some feedback on it. And then we'll also talk about ways that the Commission on Equity will be involved in that as well. So one of the things right now that we're doing with our partners is just kind of talking about, what kind of summit elements, whether it's like workshops or panels or keynote speakers or even artwork, would be of interest to the group. And so I did just want to throw that out to a broad question of, is there any particular topic or panel that you all wanted to see that we could put on the draft list of items? And we'll certainly have further conversations on it, but I just wanted to check in and see if there was anything in particular.
Yeah, I'm just interested in the framework initially to see, as I mentioned before, I just didn't want to sit around and have someone preach to me all day.
I would love a workshop on creating community programs, like community workshop, community-wide workshops, like difficult conversations or anti-bullying, something that is presented presented to the community, but interactive with communities, so we can start a larger dialogue and more communication, more interaction, engagement.
And some more history too. I mean, I know and with me, communicating just with my community, I'm on social media, it's been challenging, but understanding where things come from, so that we're not repeating the things. And who knows, that might be what's stopping the other cities from being as further in the progress than they are, because maybe they don't know as much about why, or understanding why. I don't know what their community, commission on equity, if they have a commission on equity, but what does their makeup look like? And do they have a diverse grouping of people, or is it just all maybe Caucasian ladies, or a few men that are in there? Maybe they just don't have that knowledge. So I think bringing somebody in who can help give them that knowledge, so that they know kind of where to go and give them that resource.
You're great. Commissioner Hegwood?
Yes, hi. I was actually going to just posit that well, I guess let me back up. So I've been a part of other equity, inclusion, and justice summits, ones that were held digitally, because this was kind of during COVID times still. But it was on a national scale with, national corporations as sponsors, presumably a little bit larger than what we're planning here. And that isn't to like our detriment. If anything, it gives us an opportunity to kind of focus more locally on what kind of program we have, et cetera. Anyhow, I just wanted to say that some of the workshops that I've attended, or even some of the activities that I've helped organize that I thought were the most impactful, were kind of like things that Chair Clay was saying about, having the difficult conversations. We had rooms that were on like the history of race, or like language around oppression, things that, like, for people who are curious, want to have language around issues of equity, racial justice, but don't have those tools, and kind of giving them like an introduction to that. But then there was also workshops of like, confronting like your internal bias, and that wasn't geared towards just, I don't know, non-minority communities, that because you can have internal bias as a person of color as any other minority group. And so I guess what I'm saying is I found the workshops that were specifically for making sure that everybody was on the same page language wise before having the discussions, right, and kind of diving deeper into subjects was useful, but also making sure that our programming doesn't revolve around catering to majority communities, if you know what I mean, and like really doing a service to our minority communities, in telling their stories and providing programming that is comprehensive for minority communities, like connecting with resources and things of that nature. That being said, if I don't know, if there was any desire for further conversations on that and what it looked like for us, I'd be more than happy to posit myself in there as consulting in whatever capacity. I'm probably getting ahead of myself on this one, but I just wanted to get that out there.
I appreciate all of the ideas that Mr. Hegwood will certainly circle back and run through some of those ideas with you. Appreciate all the ideas from the group.
Sorry, I also meant to say there was also a job fair that was happening simultaneously. And so connecting people with community resources, but also like economic resources, right? Companies that are looking for diverse workforces, people that, people come to these things and want to work for an organization that has these values. And so that's also a great way to kind of couple the two together. And then of course, those that may be interested, or even just like collaboration between other organizations, all of that happens under the same roof. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And then there's also dealing with guilt and fears. Like a lot of times when you're learning about history, some folks are like, well, they're talking a bit about me, and they're taking it personal, and it's not, dealing with that type of stuff, I don't know how we would go about doing with that, but I think that I could see that as being a workshop of sorts. You're gonna learn about these things, but why compassion and empathy and all of that kind of goes hand in hand with all of that, and just dealing with guilt and the fear that comes along with it. I think would be good too.
But I think these are all excellent, and I do want to just, kind of echo what Commissioner Hegwood said is we're gonna try to go slow to go fast. So these are all really fantastic ideas and we're asking all of the group too for ideas and with the idea that we'll continue to build off of this moving forward. You know, just to kind of give a brief, history, we started with the League of Women Voters and they brought together, local government institutions to talk about what they're doing and we just want to take the next couple of steps. And so we hope, that we can have this event and make it successful and then continue to build off of that momentum year after year after year. So I will certainly take these ideas back to the group and I appreciate it and I'll give you an update and we'll talk more about this at a future Commission on Equity meetings.
To clarify, is this summit is for everybody locally who works in this area, or is it open to the public for public education? Or-
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think we're kind of walking into the summit, the idea of it's an open to the community to be able to attend and to, learn whether it's about history, whether it's about language, whether it's about tools to have conversations, whether it's about action steps across the board and collaboration. And so we want it to be open, just like our, community forums are where people can attend if they'd like to attend.
Is Lacey taking the lead on that?
We are working with the League of Women Voters,
Okay.
but we're looking for collaborators. And so at the end of the day, what we hope is that we get a solid group of collaborators with us to help lead this event into the future.
And do we know-
Perhaps the Ahsoka Center in Tumwater might be another great community resource to tap for their insight as well as somebody else to partner with in making this happen.
And do we know when, about what month this is going to take place possibly?
We're hoping for April. However, we don't have a date identified, but we have been talking about a couple of venues. And we're gonna be working with our community partners, hopefully to iron out those details here in a little bit so we can provide some more concrete information as we continue to build up the summit itself.
Okay.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. The last item I have on the list that's not on the list is just a reminder for elections. So we are nearing the end of the year, and so that'll be part of the conversation at our next meeting. So I just wanted to give you all the heads up on that. It will be coming and we'll hold an election. And that, Chair, is the end of my director's report.
Got
Before we adjourn, could we circle back to the students' request from us so that they aren't held in abeyance wondering
Yeah.
good point. Yeah.
how we're gonna take care of that? I hesitated to volunteer
Yeah.
to do that because I'm going to be the featured speaker at the South Puget Sound Community College that night for their big banquet. That's overload for me to do that in the morning.
Good.
So hopefully someone else from the commission, they turned to us for a reason, so
Yeah.
I think we need to be responsive to them. I'll do it as a backup. But
Don't mind
Yeah.
throwing my name in there.
I'll do it if you agree to share some notes with me. So we-
Yeah, no, the three of us, share some notes, please. Yeah, I wouldn't
If I can
mind.
lean on you on what I want to focus on.
Yes,
Run it
Okay.
by you.
Okay.
A little bit.
same
do
thing,
that.
same thing with me too. Please reach out to
I'll
me.
also play backup then if needed.
But
You
to get
all-
back to the advisor and give them some,
Mhm.
someone.
Like to do
Yeah,
that with-
because doing it
Like me
for
to
the
do
eighth
it?
graders,
Yeah.
6th, 7th, 8th graders.
You gotta bring it to their
This is a
level.
little different.
A message just saying that we've got 3 commissioners who are interested. So I've got Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Hart, and Commissioner Sauer, who are interested in working with Commissioner Jackson in some talking points. And
And that was in late January.
Who's the headliner?
January.
17th at 9:30 AM.
Who's the headliner if you, I mean, they may need a person or.
Yeah.
And I think we can we'll work with them on what that looks like. But I think we've got 3 good names and that's a good start. And I can
Just
have
see the
further
format of-
conversations with each of you about it.
See the format of their program. and,
Exactly.
She was saying 5 to 7 minutes or whatever. Probably make it interactive or however, yeah. Yep. That will work.
Yeah, because we definitely need to keep
You
the
have to spend
attention if
some
it's like
time.
the whole school that we're gonna be talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to talk to my grandkids
Make
so I
it
can get that
impactful.
8th grade level, 6th grade level.
Well, I just thought it's important that we give them
Yeah, thank
immediate
you.
feedback
Yeah.
of
Yes,
them
yeah.
hanging out there wondering.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, any other comments? If not, adjourn the meeting at 7:28.
All right.
Have a good night.
An hour.
January 17 at 9 a.m.
9:30 a.m.
To 9:15 to 10:15.
We'll get the dates and times dialed in.
Alrighty, thank you.
All right, have a good evening.